Hey guys, and welcome to the Hobby News. Alright, so Necromunda. Yeah, we're getting quite a few things for Necromunda these last few weeks and or months, and yeah, this week we get to see something really cool. It's not out yet, but as you can see from this title, it's to do with one of I think the cooler factions in Necromunda, the Van Saar, and this model's a real, I guess, I don't know, it feels like a definite design direction, like a new kind of design direction that they've sort of been dabbling at already with a few other models, but this definitely feels like a statement and something really interesting. It's really cool. I really like it. It's got a lot of influences there, but it still feels 40k. It's whichever sculptor or designer designed it, they've done a really great job. It's really cool. So let's take a look. So see the Van Saar brute that's making everyone in the Underhive. What's this? Arachnophobic? I don't know. Anyway, that's probably to do with the technology or whatever. Someone who's smart can work out what that is. Okay, so we've seen some unusual things in the Underhive recently, from the Noble House interlopers to the Ultimate Dream Team from House Cawdor, but nothing quite compares to the technology wonder that is the Saar servo-suit. Yeah, so this thing, it's so cool, right? It's wacky, it's like overbalanced at the top, but who cares? It's got crazy weird legs that have weird joints, and these sort of almost ape-like kind of limbs, but that's, I don't know, there's something really endearing and really quite lovely about this whole thing that I really like. It could just be the blue greens. I'm a big fan of that color. If you see any of my other videos, my painting videos, you'll know that I'm extremely partial to this type of color and the purples and so on. And so it could just be the paint job, but I really like just the design language that's going on in this model. It's not quite the same as your sort of Mechanica stuff, which is generally, I don't know, a bit more kind of, a lot of ways sort of like early American kind of sci-fi, I guess, design, where you had that sort of, like Lost in Space, that kind of robot that's in that, with those sort of rounded shapes and sort of tin can kind of looking stuff. Obviously, yeah, they've got a lot of other more, I guess, more techie sort of intricate design stuff, but there's that old school vibe to Mechanicus that still kind of exists in a lot of their robots. But with this, we're seeing a more sort of, I guess, more slick, design aesthetic. There might be something that you would see in Infinity or the game, or other sort of, or other computer games that do sci-fi suits and so on. You sort of feel like there's a bit of that, but it still feels 40k. If we have a look at the image here, you're getting a little bit of those vibes from modern computer games that use this kind of faceless visors and so on, but this all still feels like it's in a 40k universe, which is, a really hard thing to do to strike that balance. I'm sure the designers have a lot of, trouble trying to keep to that aesthetic, but they're doing it here and still moving in a new direction. So I think that's really cool. I don't know what its rules are going to be or how overpowered it's going to be in Necromunda, which is probably a problem. Having a big suit like this is kind of a big deal in a small skirmish game. So I'm not quite sure how this is balanced out, or really even how big it is. It's hard to tell. I mean, that's like a body there, so it's like a bit bigger than a standard miniature, human-sized miniature. So maybe it's a bit bigger than a Terminator, or maybe it's a lot bigger than a Terminator. I'm not quite sure. Depends what size. This base doesn't actually look that big. This looks very close-up photo, so this could actually be quite small. It might not be that massive, and if that's true, that's good, because that obviously keeps more balance for the game. But in terms of just a miniature to paint and a cool-looking model, this is pretty awesome. So that's a good thing. So let's see what else they say about it. The servo suits are typically used in heavy industry to lift materials or operate machinery. The Van Saar are particularly fond of them due to both the deficiencies caused by radiation poisoning that has afflicted the clan and their love of technology. Of course, the house isn't above adding a few extra weapons to them when they're expecting a dust-up with a rival gang. The heavy weaponry they're packing generally tips the scale in their favour. Yes, they've always had the high-tech stuff, right? And it's all really good here. I mean, I love all this that's going on in this I suppose cockpit, or whatever you want to call it. You can see that it's a different kind of cradle. It's not quite the baby cradle that like a lot of the other 40K stuff has. You know, like this kind of feels a little bit more threatening. Maybe it's just because of the enclosed compartment here, but something about this version of the baby cradle feels better than, let's say, the one in the Grey Knights or the Sister Battle ones and stuff like that. This kind of feels more integrated somehow with the person inside in a way that doesn't feel like it's hanging out the front. I think it feels more inside. I guess a bit more like the Warsuit, I suppose, for Space Marines. This kind of has a similar vibe, not in look, but just where the rider is and the cage and so on. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. It looks like you can do two different builds there. We've got one where it's exposed and one where it's closed. I definitely like the closed one better. So I think this is kind of feels more right, where you don't have the cage. You've actually got whole armored pieces protecting the person. And obviously, if you're going into difficult environments, you're going to want to have as much protection as possible if you're, radiation environment or whatever it is, underground that they're digging into. So yeah, everything else is cool. Weapons are good. And then we've got another version of it here, which is obviously different from what the model is. So here we've got the full suit where the person's walking in this crazy, back piece. I don't know. Yeah, that feels like it's a little bit, or maybe the way this is he's actually tucked under there somehow and he can actually come out of that. Maybe that's an option. I don't know. But this feels very different from a normal 40K design. So that's kind of interesting. But let's see what else they say, if there's anything else they got to add. So this new brood is perfect for adding extra strength and mobile firepower to your Vansar gang. Anything lucky enough to survive the salvo from its heavy las carbines will be torn apart with those vicious servo arms. Yeah, cool. Let's see. I don't think it actually says. So, the servo-suit is currently making its way to the Underhive. In the meantime, you pick up the book and so on. Okay, so we don't actually know when it's going to be released, but it must be soon since they're showing an image of it. So, I really love this. I think that's, again, I've said this before on many of these that I've done for the sub-games. They're doing such a great job of kind of exploring the worlds and creating interesting little characters and models that step outside the normal armies and things that they do, which are constrained by a whole plethora of issues. This smaller game doesn't have as much pressure on it. They can be a bit more exploratory. They can dig in. They can do a lot more. In terms of a business thing, they don't have to sell as many units to make this thing viable, as opposed to whole factions and ranges in 40K or Age of Sigmar. There's just that little bit more kind of scope for play, and it still feels a lot like old school Games Workshop to me. Coming back into this after years away, over the last few years, the thing that's felt the most like home to me has been these sub games. All of them still feel like they're being supported in the same way as they always used to. There's a lot of fun in there. There's a lot of interesting ideas. There's a lot of humor and a lot of I feel like when I look at these that the sculptors and designers and teams that are doing this are having fun with it. That's what it feels like to me, and that's a really great thing, because it can be hard as a designer, especially I'm sure for Games Workshop. When how much flack that company gets, and in some cases rightly so, and in others maybe inflated, but certainly there are some cases where it is justified that they should be held accountable for certain actions that they do, like any other company in the world, and in this case, if you're the poor designer who's in the background there doing this thing, and everyone like completely dumps on your design, I can see that being a bit demoralizing for the sculptor or the designer. So it's nice when the game, the rules, and the models kind of marry up to something that the hobbyists and the customers and all of us out there enjoy, and they get to get that positive feedback, because that obviously makes them feel good. And we know that they're probably not getting the best pay in the world. Not all of them are probably not getting the highest rates out there in terms of working for a company that designs stuff like this. They're not working. It's not like movie money, right? If you're a sculptor in movies, I can tell you that from experience. Not that I got that kind of income, but I know from working in movies that if you are some of the leads on the designers on certain films, especially Hollywood ones, you're on very good money. Most jobs in and that kind of Hollywood type movie making is generally pretty good. So even really no matter what country you're in, it's still pretty good. So yeah, it's nice when this all marries up together and those designers get to bring out something that's satisfying. And I'm sure the person that's done this or the team that's done this are pretty happy about this little guy, because you can tell, even have a look at the the drawing of it. There's some real attention gone into this to create something unique. And as I've been looking at this now, you can tell actually. So the legs are actually there. You just can't quite see it in this, but he's running. So there is actually, that body is actually standing there. So that's really interesting. So this whole back piece is actually floating out in the air like that. That's really interesting. So it'd be great to see this model in a 360 view, just to see like how the balance is on this model, because that's a really unique design. But anyway, just some thoughts there, hopefully not too inflammatory. Hopefully that's cool. And yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it. If you had, please hit that like button, subscribe button. It really helps me out, and I guess I'll catch you on the next one.